Welcome to the Smite Pro League. Finch here. I'm joined by Anatoly Alexandrok, and we're on the final day, really, of the final week of the summer split. Toly, it's been a long one, but it's been exciting the whole way, and we got plenty more excitement coming up.
It's Friday. We got to get down for some North American Week 6 SPL action. I'm really excited for the first set, CLG versus Splyce.
That's right. It's going to be a very big set. Now, neither one of these teams can make it to land, but that's really not all that they're playing for here at this point, Toly. Certainly, they want to be going into the next split with as much momentum as possible, with some pride on the line to show some growth from spring to summer. In fact, if we can go ahead and take a look at that standings, we can see some of that growth and some of that recession on display here, but depending on which team that you're taking a look at. Splyce and CLG, 3rd and 4th place, right there clumped up at 4 and 5. Someone is moving up to that 3rd place spot.
That's true. This is not your number 1 or 2 that made it to the land, but it's the battle of the middle of the pack, and these two teams made huge improvements since the spring split, getting a better chance to really put them under the microscope to see how they're going to stack up against each other heading into the fall split. This could be a good set for both of these teams to just kind of experiment around, maybe see what works, see what doesn't, and then just get more of a feeling for the next split.
Yeah, these are such important reps they're getting against the other important teams, so that's what these two teams are going in with, that mindset of trying to improve and put themselves in the best spot for summer, heading into those placement, or for fall, heading into the placement stages, and for the SWC. But this is a look back at the matches that we already had throughout the week. We saw Energy earlier on, were able to get their win over Mouse, and that was actually a very, very close set, kind of how they helped make sure they were going to the land, and Mouse showing some great improvement, and we had some excellent sets in North America as well as we move into this last day where some of those middle-of-the-pack teams are going to kind of sort it out.
Yeah, outside of this set, it's also going to be Trifecta versus LG, your number 5 versus 6. So we'll see how they pan out later on. But for this set specifically, Splyce is coming in with the first pick. I'm curious to see what direction they're going to go with. Normally, between Divios and the solo lane out of Splyce and fineokay from CLG's solo lane side of things, they both like the Hercules. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a point of contention.
Absolutely. The solo laners really have become even more important. They were already strong, but now with mages being contested as well in the solo lane, the Chang'as that we're seeing over there, sometimes Odin's, that matchup, who can be ahead, who can make more impactful rotations, that's becoming more important than ever. That's why there's going to be a lot weighing on Divios. I mean, the last time these two teams played, Toly, I believe it was CLG who came out on top off a great performance by Hurriwind. Maybe Divios can be part of what can try and slow him down in this set.
And Divios goes for a lot of untraditional picks, or at least non-meta, not a very popular pick of the Nikes every now and then. Osiris was very popular in seasons 2, 3, and 4. Not so much in season 5, but that's not stopping Divios from playing those big bully gods. And whenever there's going to be a Chang'e or a Zhonghui on the table for fineokay, I wouldn't be surprised if Divios goes for these big bully gods such as the Osiris.
Osiris in particular really can be a nightmare. Loves to fight up close and personal. Even has some anti-heal there in the kit. So we'll see if Divios wants to go for it, as fineokay on the other side is going to be his direct opposition. They're going to need Divios to kind of stand tall up against this matchup, because CLG, they may have started off slow, but they're looking really strong in this back half of the summer season.
They have so many tools at their disposal, between Hurriwind in the mid lane that has phenomenal games just to carry off. fineokay comes into the later portion of the game. It's like, okay, now it's my turn to really put a stamp on this game of my fineokay seal of approval. And then Snoopy and Jigz are just doing their thing in the early laning phase, really getting the better end of a lot of their opposition. Whenever Snoopy gets a late game goddess, he's able to really snowball.
And we're seeing it again right here, Toly. I mean, these mages or sustained gods, or these healers, it's so important. So we'll see if that becomes a big factor for them, as you said, both of them perfectly capable of playing that Hercules pick as well. But at the beginning, you were alluding to it, right? CLG have a ton of tools. Sometimes it's Hurriwind who goes off and just, we say this rarely, but wins a game on his own. Sometimes it's Homie. Sometimes he goes off. fineokay can do that same thing as well. For the problem for Splyce here is that CLG has so many win conditions. How do you slow him down?
I think that Splyce is coming up with a strategy for this particular set, because whenever they play, we see them do something unorthodox by looking for that level 1 speed buff invade from time to time. Their picks are definitely different. CycloneSpin playing the Neath every now and then, going for global pressure. I'm curious to see if they are going to prioritize their Chernobog or not and go for something a little bit less conventional.
Here's what I would really like to see from Splyce, and Toly, I imagine you're going to back me up on this. Either a ban or a pick of Giannis.
I definitely expect that as well. Hurriwind
yes,
has been unstoppable, honestly, on this god. And it's just annoying. Whether or not you connect on that ability for the damage, just the tools to allow your teammates to go in and out of the action is just annoying to deal with. So I agree with you. I think Giannis there it goes. Just instantly banned.
Yes, thank you, Splyce. That already makes this more manageable. Not free by any means, not easy, but just that much more manageable. Hurriwind has really proven of late that he's just that good on this god that you got to get it out of there. So I like Splyce's awareness. And you alluded to it. I mean, you don't even need the damage. If that ability did no damage, you'd probably still use it. I mean, it's just that good in a team fight. So get that off the board. That means the likes of Athena are still on the table. Artemis's we've seen be valued as well. A lot of great picks still.
I think that the Artemis should be prioritized. Giving it to Snoopy would be a little bit too scary.
That's fair.
The potential for the crits, unless you're going for some sort of reflect damage. And knowing Divios, he would opt to go for the Kuzenbo if they allow Snoopy the Artemis.
Chang'e could certainly be a strong pick here as well, but Splyce gonna go with the Athena. Those are kind of those top of the crop picks right now, Athena, Artemis, and Chang'e, when these very popular bands make it through. And so that means that Athena goes to Splyce and Artemis goes over to CLG. It is going to be Snoopy now getting that very strong hunter.
With the Artemis, you normally want to pair this up with Sylvanas, especially against an Athena. As soon as she dashes in, you can blow her up with the Wrath of Terror. Definitely a lot of ability damage to follow suit. That's going to give great lane pressure towards Jigz and Snoopy. But instead going for the Terra, has more team fight control. Not the best laning phase compared to Sylvanas, but it's definitely still A-tier, A+.
Especially very early, right? When Sylvanas has the root and those AoE autos. Shouldn't be too hard to bully out this Terra. But Divios, it looks like, very early on, going with the Osiris. Now, this could potentially still be something Cyno might play. He'll play Warriors in the jungles, so this could be a flex move for him here.
It's definitely possible. It's going to be the last pick for CLG, so as long as they hold on to fineokay's pick till the very end, then they see all the cards from Splyce before making that commitment, I think they'll be fine to deal with the pressure out of either Divios or Cyno.
Medusa's going to come in to give them some ability damage. This hunter really has seen a lot of love lately. Petrify's such a strong ultimate and is very strong in the mid game, which has kind of become even more important lately too. Pair that with an Athena. That's a classic smite combo as well when you combine the taunt and the ultimate, so going to be very strong between those two.
Taunt and Petrify, pretty good. Hercules is the selection for fineokay. His traditional Hercules pick. Going to have a lot of control once he rotates to some of these team fights, and not convinced is CLG that this Osiris is going to Divios, banning away the Bellona.
I think that they're right to at least have some concern here, and going to ban away the Erlong Shen. Now that's a bit of hedging their bets, it feels like. Banning away a couple Warriors, but the Erlong is definitely a jungle ban for Cyno.
Disarm is annoying to deal with if you're late game Snoopy playing the Artemis, and Erlong Shen a comfort pick greatly coming out of Cyno, so that's why they ban away the Nash in the first phase, Erlong Shen in the second phase. Now, if Cyno wants to go for a different kind of pick, I think he would probably lean on the Ratatosker.
Now, this does mean that Agni's made it through. CLG haven't been able to put any attention towards this mid lane because they banned out so many Warriors just now. But Splyce have banned a ton of mages themselves. But Best has some really strong options in terms of mid lane are still open to him.
He loves the Agni. He loves the Scylla. So I'm not surprised that they don't pick his mid-mage right off the bat. Going for a Ratatosker global is pretty traditional. Like, you want to have global pressure. You want to have setup for your mid-mage. Ratatosker provides that option.
And this is the perfect time to sort of reveal that the Osiris was meant for the solo lane, because now they're at the end of the draft anyway. So go ahead and grab that Ratatosker. Discordia going to be heading over to the middle lane. And now the chance with Hercules already on the table for CLG to draft a jungler, and it's going to be the Nemesis.
Nemesis going to have some survivability against the Osiris' slows. You're able to just pop that Nemesis shield, get a lot of your health back in return. But against the Ratatosker in the jungle, if Cyno's very accurate with those acorn stuns, he could just disarm basically the Nemesis shield and negate it with a CC.
That's right. Once you hit it with that control, able to remove it, so it could certainly be a strong matchup for Splyce there in the jungle. These picks look like we got a pretty good idea of where everything's going to be going. Not a whole lot of ambiguity there, but these teams they're so evenly matched. Are you leaning any way based on this draft?
I'm giving it to CLG since they're all the up and up. I like Jigz on the Terra. I even love fineokay even more on the Hercules. I'm going to be questioning a little bit of what Homiefe is going to be doing on the Nemesis. We haven't seen it much often in the summer split. It's up to Splyce to shut down the jungler of CLG and get the control in the solo lane jungle.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Splyce have all these globals. We definitely want to see him active throughout that mid game, using those to get around the map and set up some picks. And CLG want to try and get to that late point where they can fight around these team fight ults. We'll see if they put those into action as we go ahead and move it into game with the casters.
Move it. That's what we like to do. Splyce and CLG, these teams right in the middle. Yeah? You go for it?
Not entirely, no. I just had to do my Maddie impersonation. That's usually how he dances. He has like one or two
just this
separate ones. He goes like that, or he goes like that.
Yeah.
It's like the Well, I can't say it on broadcast, but it's a Maddie pocket dance. I'll put it like that.
I just lean back and do the rock away. But either way, CLG and Splyce right in the middle. They're certainly dancing throughout the entirety of the summer split. And as we put an end to everything, as we call the final curtain, you know, these teams are really just looking forward towards the fall split, trying to figure out who is going to look good there so they can get to LAN. Let us know who you think is going to win this one. Taco, I think we've got a good match up for us right about now.
Yeah, Splyce came into the summer split really hot. I mean, I think a lot of people, myself included, was maybe looking towards this team as a potential top 2 candidate, even considering how they started off. And of course, that did end up simmering out just a little bit there towards the end. They couldn't hold on to it. But that doesn't mean that this fall split can't be hopeful, and I think the same could be said for CLG. These Splyce and CLGaming, for what it's worth, I think, have really been in the same kind of standstill position where they're not exactly in that top 2 running right now, but that doesn't mean that there's 0 chances of them being there in the next split.
Yeah, these two teams are they're like travelers that have found each other at the same port, but coming from 2 very different locations. CLGaming are coming pretty much from the high end of things and falling off, unfortunately, for them and their fans, whereas Splyce, on the other side, are previously a lower-end team that are seeing some more recent success, and now both of them sitting somewhere in the middle. CLG, I mean, this summer split has been... Taco, I think this summer split has been the worst that I've seen some of these guys play as a team or on teams in years.
I actually like the way you said as a team, because individually, I don't think that CLG has had any absurdly horrible performances. I think that more so than anything, CLG have kind of just encountered the issue where they have a tendency to maybe start off really strong in a match, but then that might just like end up losing its momentum based on who they're up against. And I think at times that CLG can kind of get a little bit lost in the sauce. And to elaborate, it's just that they start to run before they're actually walking.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Cyno right now getting a little aggressive here. Splyce historically very aggressive in the early moments. Homiefe going for it. Can't find the last hit. And so Cyno will wiggle out of there. The jungler for Splyce, which I think this might be a more surprising stance, right? You and I kind of are the scientists that look at the facts. We don't have any fandom involved. The fans are usually quicker than the logic and the stats, but Splyce actually winning the vote 59% over CLG. I think that's a little bit of a surprise here.
I'm not sold either way as it being a surprise, but I also do think it can maybe be a little unexpected.
Yeah.
Mostly because CLG, for I would say as terms of history and player history especially, CLG definitely has Splyce B. I mean, you've got Cyno, who's like a newer member. Divios, though, he kind of took a little bit of a split off, and he was out of the Pro League for a bit, but Hurriwind, Homiefe, fineokay, Jigz, and Snoopy are all members who have been very relevant for the past season and a half in comparison to Splyce, who are kind of on the up and up in terms of coming back from their hiatuses over into competitive play.
I mean, there was a period of time where Snoopy was considered the best hunter in the world. There was a period of time where Jigz was the best support in at least North America. And Hurriwind, although I don't think he's ever earned those superlatives, you look 2 weeks ago on the Giannis, and this guy was playing out of his mind. Individually, they're certainly all there, and they have the resume to speak for themselves, but like we said, it's really tough. And you know what? This is a team that's actually kind of baffled me. I love to just go on and talk about things and you know, break things down. Everybody's asking me, like, make a video on CLG, talk about CLG, and I'm like, nah, because I don't really know what's up.
It's hard to really talk about that sort of stuff. I get where you're coming from, because you want to mention, like, you want to say, I have the analytical breakdown for why this team isn't being successful, but sometimes it's just not that black and white. For CLGaming, a lot of their ups and downs haven't really felt like the team being out of sync with each other. It's like they lose as a team and they win as a team, sure. But it just feels awkward, because when you look at these players individually, they're absolutely stand out most of the time. It's just when you try to bring them all together to be like one cohesive unit, I think at times that's where you start to see some of the juts coming through, and it doesn't look as smooth as it might appear.
just one of the mysteries of team play. One of the mysteries of team play, and definitely something that maybe in the future we'll be able to reflect on and look back and say this was clearly the issue. It's always my favorite thing to do is just look back and be like, duh, how did I not realize that? But for now, CLG a conundrum. And to be honest with you, I mean, that's I think that is sometimes when you don't know what's going on as an analyst, that's a key that you've got a little bit to learn. But I actually think this is kind of a nice moment because I think that CLG are a team that are strong enough individually and accomplish enough in Pro Smite that if there was something wrong that anybody could figure out, they would have fixed it by now. This is a team that knows what they're doing. So, yeah, I don't think anybody knows what's wrong with CLG. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything wrong with CLG.
I think at times it feels as though they seem to find their rhythm, and that's where you can really see like the highlight sets come through, and everybody's like, "Whoa, Hurriwind!" Because there was one week where Hurriwind just has two fantastic set performances. The Giannis gameplay, it like sticks in the back of your mind, and that's where you start to pick out moments where you really tend to focus in on a player. You just kind of wonder where's the consistency in that, and I personally am not sold on it being an instance of, oh, well, the teams that they're playing against are just too tough of opponents for them to like actually defeat. I think it's more so an issue where they'll try something out and they'll have success with it, but they're not entirely sure of why it was successful, and that can be even more difficult at times to repeat victories on. Speaking of which, CycloneSpin can actually use that Petrify on the wave there.
So we've seen people, he just wants to get back to base and buy ASAP. I think he's just trying to clear the wave very quickly because he's finished Evo gloves. There it is. Yeah, we see that time and time again. I'll never forget, like, the first time, maybe not the first time, it's a small thing, but like watching Divios boulder the wave in Season 1. Now in Season 5, we're used to seeing these next level. Season 1, watching Divios just herc ult the wave, everybody was like, what are you doing? But it's a classic strat at this point.
The main reason why a lot of players at the competitive level can afford to do so is because they understand that a fight most likely isn't going to happen during the waiting period for their ult to be back up and running.
Yeah, Cyclone's going to actively walk away from fights at this point. It's just like when your beads are down, right? You're just making sure that you're not going to run into that issue.
That's why these games are always a little bit more refined, because timers matter. I can assure you that CLG's duo lane, when Snoopy sees the Petrify come through, Jigz and Snoopy are automatically letting Homiefe know, hey, if you want to try and gank, now would probably be your best time to do so. But that window of opportunity has already up and left because Cyclone, he's about to have his ult any second now.
Great ward vision as well coming out from the Splyce guys. You can see the ward up by the two entrances of the jungle. The middle one is empty, but if somebody comes through that middle one, most likely they'll already have the information from one of the other wards. So Splyce making sure to play this duo lane rather intelligently, and it's working out for them. No invades on their side of the jungle just yet.
This has been a very quiet game, actually, between the two teams, both very respective of the other's jungle. The only real moment of action we saw was Cyno nearly getting first-blooded there in the mid lane over that brawl at the right mid Harpies. Hurriwind with that heat passive stacked up on the soul, just a little bit too powerful for Cyno and Best to handle, but have to appreciate this one because now Cyno, he's done waiting, he's ready to go in.
There it is, jumping up on top. Jigz getting knocked up, stunned. CycloneSpin with the ultimate kill. But here comes the response from the jungle. Cyclone is in trouble. And he'll walk away safely. Hurriwind way too late on the rotation, so no response from Soul. First blood to Splyce.
That positioning, though, from Aror and Cyno staying right on top of Cyclone. Even if Homiefe was trying to overcommit and look for the auto attacks in the wave, or in the chase down, I should say, Cyclone most likely would have been able to be kept safe by Aror and Cyno. Their cooldowns would have been readily available, and then Homiefe would have ended up dying instead of Cyclone, so that's why we see the Nemesis backing off there.
Easy play there for Splyce. That's honestly just what Ratatasker does. You pick him in the lobby, and you say, okay, a couple of levels after level 5, I'm going to gank. Interesting itemization, actually. The Brawler's beat stick right off the rip. I mean, I understand Herc's here, and Cyno is going to be on this side of the map nice and early. and that's kind of where I was going to go, was that if you're buying Brawlers first item after Boots, or Nut in this case, or Cyno, I mean, you've got to be attacking that healer.
This could be trouble, though, for Homiefe in the jungle. fineokay was able to use that teleport to get back to lane in time, and Divios is currently invading his blue. It's already been dropped. Cyno going to be a little bit too late with that Acorn Blast and the Flurry of Acorn, so won't steal the Heartbeats from Homiefe, but the bounty of the blue buff still going to leave a heavy mark here against fineokay. It's just a little bit of extra experience towards Divios, a little bit of extra poke pressure potential because he can have the ability spam while fineokay needs to be a bit more reserved.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more of a mana thirster there as Hercules, and especially with the blue buff situation. Cyno on the rat, though, very interesting. Cyno has been a guy for Splyce that I kind of see him as the... Splyce is what could be SK. I feel like SK could be a team like this if they had some sort of consistency in the jungle, is kind of what I'm thinking. And Cyno has not exactly been the numero uno of consistency, but when he does perform, he performs well. And perhaps more importantly, I think we've seen that consistency get better. I have absolutely, since Cyno joined the Pro League, I believe it was last season, making his way from the Console League, every time he joins a team and plays, I do see him improve. And I think that's the absolute best thing to think about. When you look at TheBest, when you look at Divios, when you look at Jigz and Snoopy, these guys have been playing since 2013. Cyno, a little bit newer to the Pro League in juxtaposition to these guys, so I'm very excited to see Cyno really come into himself, and he's established himself as a Pro Leaguer. Absolutely, already done. But now he's getting to that next level as a dependable Pro Leaguer, and I like that.
Cyno kind of feels like a doppelganger to an extent, because whatever team he ends up joining, he tends to adapt a lot of their play style and just like the nature of how they pose themselves in terms of presence, player presence, and just positioning. And I think that it's pretty interesting how he consistently do so, but what's even more interesting is Jigz, as he's looking for his secondary death here. Best gonna end up finding it through the Cosmos, lands down on top of Snoopy, forcing out the board, but there's no follow-up remaining. Aror just out of range of that Tusky and around the wall, so not a chance he'll get spotted out by it.
I think TheBest even got that with one of the smaller hits of Unruly. Oh, Snoopy. He just did not belong there. Homiefe trying to avenge his Hunter. Cyno waiting for his cooldowns and likely won't go back in unless Nemesis makes herself available. But with that kill, with the kill onto Snoopy, the Gold Fury is wide open. And TheBest telling Hurriwind to sit down. 4 kills without an answer. And Splyce are able to take an early lead. 3,000 gold at 12 minutes, Taco. This is, I mean, this is not what you would have expected in the beginning of the split.
This has been a very aggressive stance from Splyce after a relatively quiet early laning phase. Now that we're starting to break into that midpoint, Splyce is just kind of turning up the heat on CLG, and I don't think all eyes were on that dual lane, because you just watch Jigz end up falling there. Snoopy ends up being, collateral damage for the team, and as much as he tried to get away, it's just too difficult to escape from that Ratatosker on the Artemis. Just not enough mobility there, and then Hurriwind, I think, kind of feeling safe because he just saw Duo get ganked up until Divios shows up, and by the way, Divios is in your mid lane now at 11 minutes into the game.
Yeah, TheBest also can, carry his own for what it's worth. I've really enjoyed watching him add Discordia to his God pool, because Best has, and I feel like I need to preface this, Best has historically always had a small God pool, but nobody's ever cared.
It's because he picks, it might be small, or hold that thought actually. Cyno looking to be like aggressive one more time onto Snoopy. Petrify not going to get the mark that it was looking for, but this could be a disengage now from Splyce. Instead, Bez going to end up falling victim to CLG's counter engagement.
This is a great showing of what happens with later game characters. Nemesis and Artemis a little bit later than Medusa and the Ratatosker. And so as the game continues going, Counter Logic Gaming gets a little bit stronger. Aror going to squeak on out of there. And that's a nice win for CLG, but most importantly, Splyce already got that Gold Fury. This would have inevitably been a gold had Splyce not just taken it. So nice timing there for Black and Yellow.
That felt like a little bit of unnecessary aggression, though, from Splyce. You just got the Gold Fury. You already won out on the objective. You found the picks that you needed to. So fighting after having already expended so much and invested so much just to confirm your Gold Fury might have been a little unnecessary. Right now, though, Hurriwind could be in a whole lot of danger here if Aror is able to keep him sticking around for much longer.
That's another question or another thing you got to ask yourself when you're taking these fights. Cyno looking ready for another one. Driving strike is down. fineokay getting stunned out. Has help from the Athena. Cyno looking for fineokay. Taunts up. Taunts. fineokay heals just a little bit because of the Brawler's beat stick. Ultimate does damage. Aror going to be flipped up. No kick available. And fineokay deals with the 3-man gank extremely well.
Cyno just didn't have any cooldowns remaining. He already used everything just to get out that Brawler's proc initially against fineokay. It was just solidly off the mark with that Lord of the Afterlife. Divios has to connect there.
Magi's Cloak. So I don't dislike Magi's Cloak at all, but because Cyno goes Magi's Cloak, they don't get the kill. If Cyno has a Jotuns, if Cyno has a Crusher, if Cyno has a Heartseeker, that's a dead Hercules.
Maybe with the damage output, yes. But I still think that Divios should have just expended that Lord of the Afterlife on the taunt.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was definitely better ways to just play that in general, but Cyno coming through and making some choices here, which begs the question, Magi's Cloak, why? I mean, usually you see Magi's Cloak with this. Yeah, it's just Artie?
It's Artemis. That way he won't have to worry about Snoopy's Tusky response. Instead of burning out his beads, he now can just drop with that through the Cosmos right on top of Snoopy because Duo has been his clear focus since around the 8-minute mark.
Which, again, the itemization from Cyno Shore is not necessarily wrong. But if his focus is going to be the dual lane, I question the early pick of the Brawlers. But, you know, he's 1-0-2, so whatever.
As opposed to a Jotuns, I'd assume, just because the cooldown reduction means more through the Cosmo ganks into Duo.
He has been showing a lot of presence on the other side of the map as well. And at the end of the day, what is it, 40-15? 40 power, 15 pen? Yeah, that's a fine item if you're not dealing with healers. So I don't hate it. But again, you know, just... interesting thought process coming out from Cyno here in the build path, going into the Brawlers and then the Magi's Cloak, 2 items that we see, but usually later on in the build.
Just check out that Duo side map vision, though, for CLG. Snoopy, he died one time, and he was pretty much one and done.
That's it.
After that, it has just been a plethora of wards all across this side of the map, just stretching over into the mid lane even to further ensure that if Cyno is to ult from anywhere, it's going to have to be from like behind the T1 tower area, more towards the bottom end of that purple buff on Splyce's side.
Yeah, he's going to have to ult pretty much from red buff, and that's it's communicatable. I'm not saying you can't tell your friends these are where the wards are, but this amount of vision is very difficult to figure out how many wards there are. Look, when you gank the lane and the enemy backs off, you know that there's a ward somewhere. Where are all 5 of those wards? That's a different story. And they're only up for a couple of minutes at a time. You could definitely like drop your sentry in the 30 seconds it's unwarded and be like, oh, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? There's so many, it's so easy to not be able to take care of that.
Also, you never know if maybe Snoopy's just deciding to play really passive. That's another thing. He's on the Artemis, CycloneSpin maybe with a slight advantage in the early to mid because he's on the Medusa. Ability damage typically more favorable for hunters because you don't take as much punishment in terms of auto attack damage in those boxing trades. But once things start breaking away from the laning phases more towards the team fights, which is what I'm anticipating to be the case pretty soon here as Splyce with Divios rotating over. This could be
strife.
An initiation. Divios still looking to push forward now. Got the tether off onto Jigz. Stun will be applied, but he's just looking to play zone duty.
Yeah, I decided to go for Jigz instead of fineokay. Probably the better choice. Level 15, or level 12 rather, comparatively speaking to Fine's level 17. Gold Fury started by Splyce, and they're certainly tearing it up. CycloneSpin with the crits already, but the peel-off is engaged. CLG here and ready to fight through the Cosmos, up in the air. Snoopy and Hurriwind going to be knocked up on the back line. CLG, though, not paying attention to the back line. fineokay and Jigz pushing up forward. Cyno chased out by Homiefe, who takes care of his back line. And big Divios, too far? Absolutely not. Aror gets the kill, but Hurriwind does answer back. Big dive from Big Divios. Trades himself out for the Hunter. Overall, not a bad play, but if Splyce lose any more here, Taco, it's going to be bad.
Oh, Best is in a whole lot of trouble now. Nice Strife's going to make sure to keep fineokay locked in place, so Best will live to see another day. But the same might not be said for this Gold Fury here. Splyce on the 4v5 disadvantage. Same situation for CLG. They don't have their Hunter. Aror, though, could have bit off more than he could chew. Not going to be able to tank up 3 members from CLG as finally Homiefe takes out the Athena.
And this is where the soul comes in the clutch, is that usually virtually any other composition, maybe if there's a Chronos mid, we see the scenario, but virtually any other composition, you kill the Hunter, and they can't do that Gold Fury. It's see you later. But because Hurry is playing the soul, and specifically look at the build, it's still an option. CLGaming kinda, sorta, almost win the fight, but definitely win the Gold Fury.
And on an unrelated note, Cyno actually with a 2-level lead over Homiefe, by the way, despite the fact that he's 1-0-2 in comparison to Homie's 3 kills and 1 assist. Both these junglers haven't died just yet, but I think Homiefe has been tending to focus a little bit more towards fighting with his team as opposed to Cyno, who's actually been going a little bit more off on his own self. Even in that last team fight, Splyce just felt so split apart from each other in comparison to CLG, and I think that's part of the reason why that fight goes so south for them. It's just Cyno's on the top end, and then suddenly it's only Divios jumping into 4 people, and sure, you've got Aror trying to back him up, and they managed to find a pick despite everything, but how many times can you really say that an Osiris is going to be able to accomplish that same play once this game hits 35-minute mark?
I mean, Osiris is definitely one of the more tanky characters. Hurriwind living there, but I'm definitely going to agree with you more than I won't. Really what it comes down to me is, so I actually, on the flip side, I liked that from Cyno. Cyno separates himself from his team, but he also separates CLGaming, and so everybody's separated. The problem for me was that Cyno just never came back. Like, he went out for milk and just never returned. And so Splyce is just sitting there like, Divios? You by yourself?
I guess the big thing that I noticed was I can see where that might be successful for Splyce. If they can successfully distract CLG so that they break away from their carries and that front line's no longer there to protect the Artemis, no longer there to protect the soul, then they have to rely on their own damage and peel capabilities.
It was Homiefe who was peeling,
Yes, but I think that Cyno took like 3 members with him. 2 more from CLG were stuck zoning the rest of Splyce, and then by the time Divios goes to assist Cyno, Cyno's managed to make it out. But then you're stuck with all 5 CLG members still in relatively the same area, and that, well, we saw what happened in the end there. Divios finds a trade out, but it ended up not really being as worthwhile.
It feels like the play might have been a good idea, but it just was just executed poorly. That's one that you go and watch the VOD back and go, all right, we see what you were doing. You still messed it up, but we see what you were doing. Next time we'll try to clean up X. We'll try to fix Y. So Splyce, and I think that's a fine place to be if you are if you're one of these up and coming teams. Splyce is still, I can't stress it enough, Splyce is still learning to function as a top tier unit. And watching them do so is kind of fun.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how they continue to develop as a team, especially heading into the fall split. Not sure if they're going to actually end up going back into the gaming house yet again, or if they're still just going to be stuck doing their own thing. But speaking of own things, Splyce trying to make this Pyromancer their own, but it's stolen away by Hurriwind. Really well-timed Supernova.
Oh, my goodness. Just the steal. And really, really, really mysterious stuff going on there. Don't even know what did it, in all honesty. Just one little baby basic attack over the wall or something, snatches that away.
No, it was a Supernova. He straight up ulted for it.
Just goes for the ult?
Just goes straight for the ult. They had a ward on the bottom side. I don't believe that ward was able to show the health of the Pyromancer. It might have been actually giving vision towards that health bar.
Here's a black and white question that might be pretty easy. How upset are you for Splyce? If you're Splyce, how upset are you that that's stolen? Like, it's just a Pyromancer, but at the same time, you were going for it.
Well, you don't really lose too much on the Pyromancer.
Yeah.
The main thing is just having the timer, but both sides have the timer. More importantly, Best wishes he could have his life. Homiefe gonna lose the Purification Beads. Hurriwind forced out of the Aegis because of Cynos through the Cosmos, but it's a 2v3 in mid.
There's the Terra ultimate. It's gonna make everything hurt just a little bit more, and Hurriwind falls down to the hand of Aror. Dashes on out to the left. Divios up in the middle. But that should be the end of that exchange. And realistically, I mean, Taco, this is the moment where CLGaming has the late game team and Splyce don't. And Splyce were winning up until here. And now the game will be easier for CLG.
It's just going to put a little bit more pressure onto Best, I believe. Cyclone also needs to be very mindful of when he chooses to utilize that Petrify. I think right now it'll probably be best for him to hold on to it throughout the entirety of an engagement pretty much up until it's just about to resolve itself, and then you come back in with that Petrify, catch everybody off guard, whether it's a slow being applied or just a flat-out stun.
Sure.
It's still going to be a fairly effective tool for Splyce in terms of controlling objective play.
Gold's Fury down to about, well, 50 very quickly. The crits coming out from the Hunter, and Cyno certainly doing a good job. CLG want nothing to do with it, and that is the better objective than Pyro almost all of the time. So Splyce get the better objective, still a little bit of a lead, but all in all, if you ask this professional, I'd say it's tied up here, 10-29, sub 1,000 gold lead, 25 minutes. Yeah, it's nothing to hang your hat on whatsoever. So very, very close is this one. Divios though, wow. You show me a solo laner with a ton of player damage, I go, sure, no big deal. You show me a solo laner with over 10,000 more player damage than his lane opponent. Yeah, I'd say that's been an impact. Divios, 19,300 player damage. The Hercules not even at 9K.
Divios has just been spamming fineokay relentlessly. It's not even just fineokay anymore. It's his early rotations that funneled into Divios having the freedom to try and harass CLG's backline a little bit better. It's been a lot of poke damage, though, from Divios, which is really important. You don't typically expect the Osiris to be the poking member of your team. I mean, he's melee. He tries to just stick to you as long as possible, but Divios has just managed to make himself so noticeable, and it's not that he's just showing up and COs, you're like, oh, Divios is here, guys. It's like, oh, somebody get Divios off of me right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's the man. He's the mon. He's poking you.
Aror's getting a little poked out by that Supernova.
Yeah, just a little bit of a get off of my lawn ultimate from Hurriwind. Well, to be fair, anytime at a competitive level an Athena walks near you, you could just die, right? You get taunted into the wrong ability storm, and you can just die. So that might look a little funny to the folks at home, but at the end of the day, that's Hurriwind saying, I don't know who's around the corner. And Aror, that's a very positive thing for Aror, because he knows the power he has. He can just walk at you. I don't even think he taunted. He just threatened it.
Speaking of which, CLG actually going to be the ones to pull this Fire Giant. Divios, though, already knew what's up. Follows fineokay over into the Fire Giant pit, and now Splyce going to be able to kill the Sentry Ward that was once standing there for CLG and replace it with their own. And both teams hanging around. fineokay, though, getting aggressed on by Divios and Aror.
There's the ultimate, there's the ultimate, and there's the ultimate. Another one off the top, and Divios takes down fineokay. Homiefe dealing a ton of damage to the enemy Hunter, but CycloneSpin in the back line, getting that Aussie proc and healing. Not an Aussie proc, why is he glowing red? Snoopy takes care of the best. Divios gonna be cut down. This one looks like it's CLG's team fight. CycloneSpin running away there.
Snoopy shows up with the boar and just destroys everybody in that moment. Now, though, CLG could have bit off a little bit more. It's not good for CLG. They are way too deep into this tower.
Yeah, the two squishies, Homie and Hurry, just wind up behind the Tier 1 tower. I misspoke. No Aussie on CycloneSpin. That was the Wind Demon proccing. So just a ton of power coming out from CycloneSpin here as Divios gets another one. Splyce starting the fight. Get a little too aggressive. CLGaming take advantage of that. And then Splyce take advantage of CLGaming taking advantage of Team Splyce. Now the squad is very low. And I could see Cyno dying to the objective. All right, nice. They did it.
Cutting it close.
And TheBest actually spawned. Can we see TheBest? I'm pretty sure TheBest actually has that buff.
The big thing for me is once Snoopy...
1 second late.
1 second.
1 second late. I wonder if Best is yelling at them right now. Really? 1 second?
I don't fault Splyce for not waiting.
Me neither.
You never know what can happen. There was still a couple of members left standing for CLG, and since Splyce was so low, you never know if someone's just gonna all in it right then and there.
That's a quadra kill waiting to happen. Yeah. No, you rush that one down, Jeremy. You'll be without the fire giant. I'm sure you'll be fine. Right now, the Osiris is the one on top. Don't forget, of course, he's getting more power because of that Discordia passive. So Divios just really bringing it to the enemy team. Love the build. Just Midgardian Mail to deal with Homiefe, right? Winged Blade to deal with Homiefe. Just a lot of smooth options. In fact, Midgardian Mail to deal with Homie, Hurry, Snoopy.
It feels a little bit, though, like CLG haven't really been able to play around Homiefe's ultimate as much as they would have liked to. And even that last engagement felt a little bit awkward because Hurriwind didn't have his ultimate immediately since he expended it in the mid lane to avoid Aror's follow-up taunt on the Athena. Now Splyce, no surprise that CLG aren't bothering to contest the Gold Fury, because we are 30 minutes and climbing into this one. First game here between Splyce and CLG, and it's been a bit of a doozy for both sides, I would say. It's been fairly even up until that last Fire Giant fight where CLG, they chose to try and dive past the T1 tower, and they just could not afford to go that deep.
Perfect example of a very important end of the season, quote, unimportant game, right? I mean, if you're going to get dashed out and walk away. Splyce is a team that's very, very good at the early game. We'll finish our conversation in a moment because Jigz going to get talked over. And there's the drop down. Where's the drop down? No! Cyno doesn't go for the kill. He goes for the tower, which might be the more intelligent play in all honesty.
Cyno held it because he didn't feel comfortable, I think, dropping down on top of Jigz, maybe worried that even through the Mad Guy's cloak proc, providing him with the CC immunity for about a second, it still wouldn't be enough to keep him alive. Snoopy's turn and burn potential right now is pretty much at its peak. He's got the Poison Star, the Wind Demon. We already saw him run rampant there for a second on the right-hand side prior to Splyce winning that team fight overall. I think that if Snoopy just gets a little bit more time to really work his way in to a fight, then we start to see some of that comeback potential from CLG.
What is Snoopy building here?
Titan's Bane.
That's going to be a Titan's Bane?
I believe it'll be a Titan's Bane.
Any particular reason? Usually Executioner is...
There's a lot of physical defense for Splyce right now. There's Midgardian he has to worry about. Mantle of Discord provides some physical prots. Even Cyno has the Void Shield, the Mad Guy's Cloak. Small amounts of protections, but they're still there, and they're still just as relevant.
Certainly a better look for Snoopy. Snoopy, Hurry, Homie. Sounds like the 3 dwarfs. Counter Logic Gaming and the 5 dwarfs. Homie, Hurry, Jigzy, Snoopy, and Finey.
That actually works.
Yep. See, Hurriwind, Hurry. He's the dwarf.
They all have like that
running around.
Y sound. If you just add a Y to Jiggs' name, Jigzy,
it works. And then all of them have their like what they do. Finey,
oh my god.
Finey, he's coming for your money. He's gonna fine you.
Homie took us until the last day.
There it is.
Of the split to figure it out, but we've got it.
Counter Logic Gaming and the 5 dwarfs. Hurry is on his way. Jigzy is. I guess Jigzy doesn't really have anything to do with it.
You know what the other thing is too? Some people might have just assumed you were making fun of them all for being short.
Oh, not even where I was going. No. The patron saint of Counter Logic Gaming is my friend TV. The official mascot of CLG. Splyce and Counter Logic Gaming.
Jigz right now in a whole lot of trouble. Already getting bursted out so much so by that apple from Discordia. Divios trying to stay alive here, but the Earthbreaker isn't going to pull anybody back in. fineokay just going to have to toss out that boulder, and Excavate has no chance of killing someone.
Same play there that we just saw, except I disagree with the decision. Cyno didn't chase down Jigz, who was almost dead. But last time, he played it safe so his team could get the tier 2 tower. This time, there was no objective to obtain. I would have liked to see Cyno chase.
Their fire giant wore off.
Yeah, I see that. And I guess the consequence is if you lose that fight, you lose fire. And you lose a lot more than that. Splyce starting it back up one more time. Nice taunt coming out from Aror. There's a big boy stun. And Jigz and fineokay not in a good spot.
fineokay, though, he was already facing the other direction. He'll fortunately be able to avoid that one. Snoopy gets taunted back in, and it's Divios fully committing underneath the T2 tower. That's Snoopy's Aegis, but the Unruly Magic's just too powerful. That's going to be Snoopy getting claimed by TheBest.
That's and I love that exchange because it answers the question that I didn't even ask. When I see Cyno shy away from the first time, right, in the mid lane, I go, that's the right decision to make. I see him shy away in the right side, and all of a sudden I start thinking, is this team too timid? Are they, I don't want to say afraid, but are they not excited enough, or do they not have the wherewithal to focus down the must-kill targets? But seeing Snoopy, and I mean, Divios went the nth degree for that kill because of how impactful a dead Hunter is in the late game. Snoopy dead opens a Fire Giant and a right side Phoenix. I love the decision making from Splyce.
Love this also by Cyno. Just by being up in the air there, he's posing a threat. Jigz immediately eradicated from the fight. Homiefe soon to follow if he's not careful. Sure enough, he's going to dash away from this right-hand Phoenix, but that means no one can save the Phoenix. Hurriwind falling incredibly low will get stunned out from Divios thanks to that tether effect, and now Splyce, they've already got one Phoenix. They're looking for another, and CLG with only 4 members standing. I don't know if fineokay is going to be here for much longer.
Oh, great ultimate from Hurriwind, zoning the players of Splyce in the other direction. Cyno has Homie on his backhand, and Homie going into the katana. Will be able to chase him down if need be. Big Divios falls down to the hand of Hurry. And Splyce just had a great sequence, but then kind of tosses it away. But I definitely don't want to take anything away from CLG. That was great defense from the blue squad there, or red. Their colors are blue. They're playing red team. Counter Logic Gaming looked good on defense.
That initial siege, though, from Splyce is exactly what they need to make sure to continue replicating.
Yep.
By having Cyno go up into that through the Cosmos, CLG have no idea whether Splyce are just going to fully die for the fight, and they can't really afford to take a fight in a sheer 5v5. I think that both of these compositions rely on a certain level of execution. Splyce have just shown, time and time again, though, throughout this match, that their execution just a little bit better than CLG's.
Which, again, oh man, I'm still internalizing the things that we're saying. Because listen, I am a very big fan of Divios. I think what this young man does is very, very strong. But not even if, go look at my old videos. When you showed me the Splyce roster in the spring, and you showed me the CLG roster in the spring, I think I tell you, this is clearly a 2-0 for CLG. It's not close, and it's going to be short games. The idea, you just said, Splyce is better at execution than Counter Logic Gaming here. There's no part of me that disagrees. I'm just surprised that that's what I'm saying here in the summer split. These guys have improved so much. And yeah, sure, maybe CLG have slipped a little bit, but Splyce looks hot.
And it doesn't feel like it's been 6 weeks.
No.
But it has been 6 weeks, and the amount of time that these players are given to sort of adapt and adjust to their competitive environments, it's very impressive. And look at this lineup from Snoopy. Beautiful trap placement there. Looking to really burn some cloaks. Divios already having to eat one, and it's just a line of defense.
Yeah, Divios, smart person to go ahead and do that. Jigz gets stunned out by the ultimate out of the Medusa. Backline Snoopy low. Where's the Rat? Rat lands up front. Snoopy gets hit with the ultimate for the mid lane mage. Still going to be alive. JK, Aror, LOLs to the base. Jigz in trouble. Jigz is gone. Cyno with another kill.
fineokay gonna driving strike everybody backing away from this Minotaur, but it might not be able to stand much longer, because this is Splyce tearing down the base of CLG. Phoenixes are still not going to be much of a help here. The left-hand side, Splyce have zero interest in it.
Game number 1 goes to Splyce. 1 gold above 100,000. 38 minutes of play. And the black and yellow take this one. And Taco, I'm a believer. This is a team.
That was very one-sided after, I would say, probably the 18-20 minute mark.
Yeah.
I think that CLG had some great responses at first, but as the fights continued to progress and as these same sort of initiations, it felt like Splyce got better at initiating, and CLG steadily got worse and worse at being able to respond to it.
Yeah, I kind of highlighted it. Splyce always come out with this early game strategy. That's really what they've discovered works for them early and often, is go with the early and mid game. And then as the game got later and people got more items, we saw CLG sort of take that momentum because they had a later game composition. But the game is much more than just what happens with the characters on paper. And after maybe 5-7 minutes of CLG doing it, Splyce just kind of came back.
Splyce, I think, you know, for the hiccups that they had in the early game, they certainly made sure to eliminate almost all of them by the late. I think that Cyno was struggling a little bit with hesitation towards the end there, but it didn't seem to really impact the rest of the team's momentum. So as long as those two clauses can stay separate, I don't think that Splyce has too much to worry about.
Game 1 goes to Splyce. Let us know who you think is going to be the MVP. Drop that in Mixer chat. We're going to drop the cast over to the desk. Bring it down, boys.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Taco. Finch and Tolly. We're going to tell you a little bit more about what happened there in that Game 1 as Splyce come out looking pretty strong. And totally for me, I mean, they just got off to such a good start with Cyno on that Ratatosker, making some great ganks. CycloneSpin was pretty free as well. I mean, what's your big takeaway from that game?
It's all about the global pressure, and that's what Cyno brought to the table. It doesn't matter the fact that there was the Naja and the Erlang Shen ban from CLG.
Right.
He found a comfort pick in the Ratatasker, something that we really haven't seen too often out of him. Very comfortably ending the game at 2-0-9. And speaking of Divios that you were mentioning, he was very early aggressive since the beginning of his rotations, going for this kind of early build between the Gladiator Shield into the Onclave, very cost effective, topping the player damage very easily over 30,000. And with the changes to Glad Shield, getting that extra 5 physical power, especially on Osiris when you have a 5-second sickle strike on your first ability. You just spam that more often. You get more benefits from the sustain on top of it. I like the aggression. Splyce came out on top.
And really, Divios was a key part of that. And I don't think his player damage is fake. I mean, a lot of it, yes, he gets poken out fine, okay, he can kind of heal up through it. But a lot of it he also gets from his rotations and bullying. Very early on, he was suddenly in middle lane, causing problems for Hurriwind or catching out Homie in the jungle as well. Divios had a great game, and sounds like Mixer Chat also recognized that Divios had a great game. So I think y'all got this one dead correct, as Divios is going to be your MVP for Game 1. Take a look at some of his finest moments. He really did kind of set up for the rest of the squad to have a good game.
Oh, this was a great gank on top of the Aror, Athena, Defender of Olympus, and just getting all the damage on top. Nothing that fineokay can realistically do, even under his own Tier 1 tower.
And Divios, yes, he was a monster on the front side of the fights, but he had great support coming from TheBest as well on this Discordia. The strifes were so big. He had tons of damage on this Discordia, and it was too much setup, right? The front line from Splyce were just too strong. Aror with the taunts and Divios on the Osiris. I mean, CycloneSpin and TheBest had a field day back there.
And because how aggressive Divios was, he benefited from that Discordia passive, getting something about
the whole game.
Yeah, like you get 2 power per level. I think it's 5 base if I'm not mistaken. And at level 10, you're seeing it about an extra 25 power that allows you to win some of those boxing exchanges. But as much as